You know what January does to horror fans? Well, it lies to you. It shows up wearing a sensible sweater and a quiet calendar page and says, "Relax. Nothing scary is going to happen." And then, on the 18th, it drops a camcorder into your hands, shoves you into a packed New York apartment party, and lets the sky rip open. This week isn't about cozy winter vibes, it's about cold water, bad signals, hungry teeth, and the weird moment when the modern world realizes it still has ancient monsters hiding behind the drywall. So lock your doors, charge your phone, and keep one eye on the horizon, because this time of year has a nasty habit of proving the haunting was always here. Welcome back to This Week in Horror History for January 12th through January 18th, your time capsule of screams and the dates that they first crawled into the world. Tonight, a crocodile movie that wanted to be a straight creature feature thriller and got dragged into real-world chaos. A deep-sea base that discovers the ocean doesn't care about your budget, your oxygen, or your exit plan. A legacy sequel that proved you can bring the slasher movie back as long as you tickle the nostalgia. And a brand new horror novel that turns the wilderness into a hungry maze. Then, for our deep cut spotlight, we talk about one of the most influential found footage movies that most people seem to have forgotten about in that category. And finally, a J-horror pick where your phone doesn't just ring, it sets you up. And not for a relaxing lunch on a Tuesday afternoon. January 12th, 2007, Primeval hits theaters. Primeval is the kind of January release that feels like it should be background noise. But it isn't. You've got a massive crocodile, a news crew trying to capture a story, and the movie's real menace. A grim, tangled backdrop of violence that makes the whole thing feel queasy in a way that most killer animal movies don't even scratch the surface of, even with big claws. It's also a very interesting example of mid-2000s studio horror, trying to look serious while still selling you a midnight matinee. It's big teeth, big screams, and a monster you can, run from. It's a little time capsule of that era's tone. It's glossy, but it's cynical, and it's pretty to look at, but meaner than you would expect. And speaking of giant crocodile movies, one of my favorite underrated killer croc movies, which came about 7 years earlier, is the aptly titled Crocodile, directed by Tobe Hooper. It's just a fun, silly creature feature, and I always enjoyed it. And here's a piece of trivia you have no need to know about me. It was the first DVD I ever owned. It just kind of worked out that way. But yeah, Primeval, it's a film I've always enjoyed. I think creature features have their place in horror history, and it's a big one. And the resurgence of them, it's definitely been cyclical. During 2007, 2008, that was right when we were about to have the big swing of those Sci-Fi Channel original monster movies, which they really dominated the low-budget independent film scene until Lifetime took over. Yeah, that's right. If you're not aware, if you want to make a higher budget, but still low and indie thriller, what have you, you really need to take it to the Lifetime channel, because Sci-Fi does not pay nearly as much. So whether you're revisiting Primeval after a very long time, or you want to watch it for the first time, like Titanic, I don't know why I made that joke, you can find it available to rent or buy digitally on Amazon, Apple TV, and Fandango at home. And remember, it's not the sharp teeth you need to worry about. It's the crushing force of the jaws. January 13th, 1989, Deep Star 6 splashes down to Earth. Deep Star 6 is the undersea horror movie that knows its strongest weapon isn't the creature. It's the floor plan. A remote base, narrow corridors, heavy doors, and the constant reminder that the ocean is pressing in from every conceivable direction. The setup is simple. A Navy crew builds deep, drills deeper, and cracks open a space that should have stayed sealed. After that, it becomes a movie about logistics, the true horror, dwindling oxygen, failing systems, and panic spreading faster than any monster could ever hope to swim. It helped set the stage for the whole wet claustrophobia wave that followed. One of my favorites from that time period being The Abyss, although, it was a James Cameron monster joint, but I still think it's more horror than not. If you want to revisit Deep Star 6, and I do highly recommend it, especially if you enjoy that claustrophobia feeling, well, it's available to rent or buy digitally on Amazon or Apple TV. You might be able to find it somewhere else, but I couldn't, and maybe you're just better than me. January 14th, 2022, Scream returns to Woodsboro. Scream 2022 did the rare thing. It honored a franchise without embalming it. It's sharp, mean, funny, and it understands that modern horror fans are both smarter and more exhausted than ever. It also nails the hardest tone in slasher history. The balance between this is ridiculous and this is happening to you. It's a movie where the jokes land and then the knife lands too. It landed like a monster at the box office in January, the kind of theatrical hit that helped fuel the current wave of legacy sequels and horror comebacks started by the Halloween reboot from David Gordon Green. You can give Scream 2022 a watch. It's available on Paramount Plus to watch with a subscription, and you can rent or buy it on pretty much any digital store like Amazon Prime or Fandango at home. January 16th, 2024, This Wretched Valley is published. Jenny Kiefer's debut novel takes the let's go hiking premise and twists it into pure dread. A group disappears in the Kentucky wilderness. Time goes strange, and the landscape feels like it's actively rearranging itself to keep you lost. It's the kind of book that turns the outdoors into a kind of puzzle box, one that has such sights to show you. One wrong turn, one foggy ridgeline, and suddenly the valley feels less like geography and more like appetite. If you like folk horror energy with modern pacing, and you enjoy the feeling of reading something that makes you want to stay on the trail, this is a solid winter pick. It's available on paperback, ebook, and audiobook editions. They're widely available through all major retailers, booksellers, and libraries. Tonight's episode of This Week in Horror History is brought to you by Savorista.com. They're the caffeine-conscious coffee company, say that 5 times fast, offering premium blends but with way less caffeine, allowing you to enjoy your cup of magic hot brown without staying up till the sun comes up unless stopped feeling real. Listeners get to enjoy Savorista coffee at 25% off with promo code SPOOKY at Savorista.com, and every time you go to Savorista.com and use promo code SPOOKY, it supports our podcast directly, so head to Savorista.com, get yourself a tasty treat of coffee that won't keep you up all night but is not short on bold flavor, and support the show. All right, now take a breath, because after the break, we're grabbing the camera and stepping into January 18th, 2008. The night New York stopped feeling real. Welcome back to This Week in Horror History. Keep that camera steady. It only gets worse from here. January 18th, 2008, Cloverfield hits theaters. Cloverfield is a monster movie that never lets you see the whole monster. Well, not really, and part of that may be due to the type of lenses consumer cameras used at the time. Instead, it traps you with 6 people who just wanted one last party and turns the city into a shaking hallway of smoke, sirens, and falling concrete. Now, this isn't just a genius found footage gimmick. It's the way the movie weaponizes perspective. You only know what the camera knows. When the power goes out, you're blind with them. When the crowd panics, you're in the middle of it. And when the rules of what a monster movie is supposed to show get ripped apart, your brain starts filling in the gaps with something far worse than CGI. It also hits that perfect early social media moment where everybody has a camera but nobody has a plan, and the only way to process terror is to document it. The movie feels like a time capsule now with 2008 technology, 2008 behavior, and even 2008 anxiety. And yet the panic itself is evergreen, and the marketing campaign was incredible. I was in my 20s in 2008, and boy howdy, the website was brilliant, and the way they piqued our curiosity really was genius. The marketing on Cloverfield was next level, and for whatever reason, that's how found footage marketing campaigns seem to be. I mean, look at the big heavy hitters. Blair Witch Project had one of the most incredible campaigns of all time that made millions of people have to go see what happened in the Blair Woods. Then you have Paranormal Activity, which was really incredible at marketing the idea that you were going to be truly and utterly terrified. Now, whether these films delivered is neither here nor there. My point is, wow, the marketing really hits and really pulls you in. And of course, it's worth mentioning Cloverfield performed like a January event, which is not that common. Roughly $172 million worldwide on a $25 million budget, which, don't get me wrong, is an incredibly fat budget for a found footage movie. But of course, most found footage movies don't have a giant monster terrorizing New York City. It's important to keep in mind that January is often where they dump films that they think may not perform well, or films that have a built-in audience. This is no doubt a proof of concept that small can feel enormous if you control the ride. The legacy is bigger than the sequels and spin-offs, which are all fun in their own way and very, very varied. Cloverfield helped prove that horror could be a blockbuster without losing its teeth, and that less information can be the scariest special effect of them all. And I cannot recommend enough, if you've never seen it, 10 Cloverfield Lane. That's one of my absolute favorites of all time. Currently, you can watch it on Paramount Plus with a subscription, or MGM Plus through a bundle or subscription. You can also rent or buy it on Amazon Video, Apple TV, and of course, Fandango at home. Time to light a spooky candle for our birthdays. January 12th, 1965, Rob Zombie was born. Hey, yeah. Musician turned horror filmmaker with a heart deeply settled in Grindhouse and a love for dirty Americana. I've never been the biggest fan of his films, but I've always appreciated what he was going for, and of course, he really shaped the sonic attributes of my childhood with his haze and yaz and his driving guitars. So happy birthday, Rob. On January 12, 1954, Frank LaLoggia is born. Writer-director of Fear No Evil and Lady in White, a filmmaker who knew how to make the supernatural feel personal in a way few other filmmakers have been able to accomplish. a great director, and I really do recommend you revisit as many of his films as you can, whenever you can, because they will stick with you. Happy birthday, Frank LaLoggia. January 16th, 1948, one of the biggest heavy hitters, John Carpenter, is born. He's the minimalist king, the man who brought us Halloween, The Thing, and a lifetime of synth music dread. Not only has John Carpenter made movies like Halloween, The Thing, but in my opinion, of all of the kind of kings or masters of horror out there, he has the most hits and the least misses. Now, obviously, he wasn't box office gold every single time he came out the gate, but if you look at his even underrated films, man, they really stand out, especially if we're talking mid-90s and back. I mean, In the Mouth of Madness, Prince of Darkness, they're all really solid movies. So, John Carpenter, we hope you have a great birthday and keep the piano humming for as long as you can. January 17th, 1977, a more modern heavy hitter in the horror genre is born. Leigh Whannell, a modern horror architect who changed the genre substantially with Saw and Insidious with his own sharp, character-first nightmares. Leigh Whannell is, sometimes I feel like, overrated and underrated at the same time, and I mean that in the most loving way possible. If you get a chance, sit down and watch the original Saw movie, and you'll see why, because that is such a solid, instant classic of a film. Happy birthday, Leigh Whannell. For our then and now comparison, here's the through line for this week. Horror loves systems that fail. Primeval says the story is bigger than the monster, and suddenly the creature feature tastes almost bitter. Deep Star 6 says technology can go deeper than wisdom, and the ocean answers with its own murky, salty teeth. Scream 2022 says we remember the rules, then shows you how grief and fame can warp them. And Cloverfield, well, Cloverfield says you can record the disaster, you just can't control it. Which feels even more true now, because we live in the era where catastrophe arrives with a push notification, a shaky video, and a comment section arguing about what it really is. Perception has not gone away at all. It's still king, even when everything is documented. Maybe that's why found footage seems to never truly die. It doesn't just show fear, it shows how people behave when fear becomes content. And that is a horror story, all by itself. And our weekly recommendation from January 17th, 2004, One Missed Call, opens in Japan. If you want a perfect, your phone hates you horror movie, Takashi Miike's One Missed Call is a chilly classic. Voicemails from the future, timestamps counting down, and the creeping realization that the device you trust the most might be the one writing your epitaph. And this is before Siri and the Amazon Echo and ChatGPT. This is the earliest concepts of having a little computer in your pocket everywhere you go, and it's ready to kill you, even though it doesn't have that much RAM. It's sleek and nasty and surprisingly sad beneath the shocks. That's something you can always count on Miike to deliver. And it lands like a bridge between early 2000s Japanese horror and the modern obsession with cursed media. It's a great reminder that technology horror isn't really about gadgets. It's about intimacy. Your phone is always in your hand. It's always near your bed. It's always close enough to whisper to you. Takashi Miike is a guy you should be following anyway if you haven't already. The man's directed so many memorable films. This is just one of dozens. As far as where to watch, you can catch it on AMC Plus and Shudder with subscriptions, or rent and buy it at most major digital retailers. You know the drill, I say them again and again and again. Amazon Prime Video, Fandango at Home, Apple TV. Well, my spookies, that's your horror history for January 12th through January 18th. If this episode puts you in the mood for more, your next stop is right here on the Weekly Spooky feed. Tomorrow, the second installment of our January mini-series drops entitled Banned, about a snowy, cozy lodge hosting a horror movie convention, where murder becomes the main attraction, and it doesn't sign autographs. Then on Friday, we feature more of the best of 2025 horror stories. You won't want to miss it, especially if you did last year, because, well, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, well, you know the rest. But it's going to be Ship of the Cannibal Rats. With a title like that, you know it's going to be good, so come back on Friday as well for a quick bite. And on Sunday, the unknown broadcast will slip into our feed again. We don't know what it is or where it comes from. We just know it shows up, and it always has something to say. Until next time, my spookies, keep the lights low, the volume up, stay spooky, and remember, our days are numbered, because that's how we tell them apart.